Following a domestic disturbance with her husband on May the 9th of 2019, Pennsylvania woman Mackenzie Stanley got into a grey Dodge Caravan and sped through Levittown. 23-year-old Stanley's two children were unrestrained in the vehicle's back seat at the time. The Bucks County woman was intoxicated, as was her husband, who was reportedly spotted at one point running after the vehicle. As Stanley headed down Forsythia Drive south, she accelerated to over 60 miles per hour in a 25 zone. She then lost control, struck a light pole, and slammed into a vehicle driven by Christian Gallardo. The latter's dash cam captured the moment of impact, and Gallardo subsequently shared the footage on Facebook. He noted that had Stanley not hit him and thus deviated her course, she would have either plowed into a house and killed everyone in her vehicle or struck a boy who was playing in a yard nearby. After impacting Gallardo's vehicle, Stanley struck a parked car before coming to a halt in a bush. Speaking to NBC 10, Gallardo said that he was shocked upon discovering Stanley's children in the back seat. After going to check on the Dodge, the intoxicated woman was reported as belligerent and uncooperative during her interactions with responding officers. Numerous bottles of Fireball cinnamon whiskey were subsequently recovered from her vehicle. Stanley was transported to St. Mary Medical to have her blood drawn before she was arrested on 16 charges, including 3 counts of driving under the influence, 3 counts reckless endangerment, and 1 count for an accident involving property damage. Number 6. San Bernardino incident. On January the 5th of 2024, a horrific car crash was captured on CCTV in San Bernardino, east of Los Angeles, California. 2 bystanders were shown narrowly getting out of the way of a red sedan as it sped towards a parking lot before slamming into a parked car and a U-Haul truck. The impact wasn't visible in the footage, and only the accompanying sounds of the high-speed crash were heard. The driver was captured as he launched high into the air over the truck and then landed on the concrete of the parking lot below. The driver remained motionless on the ground and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition in the immediate aftermath. Photos taken at the scene showed his overturned and mangled sedan resting on its side next to the vehicles it had just struck. According to updates from mid-January, the driver hadn't been identified and his condition remained unknown. Number 5. Thomas Lenthal. On July the 25th of 2023, Madison North and her teenage sister, Liberty, went to buy some soft drinks from a store in Somerset, England. They were preparing for a party celebrating 21-year-old Madison, who'd recently fulfilled her childhood dream of becoming a teacher. The family had plans to attend her graduation ceremony the following day. The sisters were in a Volkswagen Polo, driving along the A361 Frome bypass. As per statements subsequently made in Bristol Crown Court, 40-year-old businessman Thomas Lenthal was driving in excess of 100 miles per hour when he tried to overtake another car in his Audi RS6. He imprudently attempted the maneuver while barreling down the roadway and struck the Volkswagen with the 2 sisters head-on. Madison and Liberty suffered devastating injuries in the crash and were pronounced dead. Lenthal himself was taken to the hospital in serious condition but was later released. Arrested and charged in connection to the fatal collision, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of causing death by dangerous driving in the incident's aftermath. In December of 2023, he was jailed for 10 years and would have to serve at least 2/3 of his sentence, in addition to being disqualified from driving for 7 years. Carl DeRosa, the lead investigator from the Collision Investigation Unit handling the case, spoke to the media in the aftermath and poignantly stated, "The reckless actions of one man has left 2 parents without their children and a hole in their lives which no sentence will be able to fill." Number 4. Viorel Sandulace. Truck driver Viorel Sandulace was traveling through Kent, England, while distracted by a comedy program he'd downloaded on his phone on November the 3rd of 2017. Footage from surveillance cameras inside his cabin would show the Romanian national, who was at the time living in Grays, Essex, smiling and glancing at a downward angle while behind the wheel. As investigators later determined, Sandulace had failed to notice that an Audi was in front of him on the Dartford crossing until it was too late. The truck driver plowed into the back of the smaller vehicle, driven by 21-year-old student Abigail Harvey. She suffered devastating injuries in the collision and had to be airlifted from the crash site. Harvey was pronounced dead in a hospital 3 days later. Sandalache was arrested on the charge of causing death by dangerous driving and would later admit to the lesser charge of causing death by careless driving. Sandalache claimed that he'd been listening to the comedy program, not watching it, that he'd actually glanced at the speedometer and that the Audi came out of nowhere. The fact that he was distracted while behind the wheel was beyond contestation. The prosecution argued he had made 2 Google searches of a first and second series of the comedy show and downloaded them while driving. He was 6 minutes into an episode before the accident happened, and footage from inside the cabin showed him laughing. Sandalache also had prior convictions for speeding and driving while using his mobile phone. Jurors at Maidstone Crown Court ultimately found him guilty of causing death by dangerous driving, and he was jailed for 9 years in the spring of 2019. Number 3. Nesta Joel Lujan Flores. On the night of December the 16th of 2023, law enforcement in White Settlement, Texas, were notified that the driver of a Kia Forte appeared to be slumped over the steering wheel while his vehicle had extensive damage to its hood, front, and windshield. Responding officers made their way to the scene and approached the driver, 31-year-old Nesta Joel Lujan Flores. In the passenger seat, law enforcement noticed what appeared to be a human body with no signs of life. Flores, who was severely intoxicated, told the police that he believed he'd hit a deer in Dallas. The body was identified as that of 45-year-old Terry Ivory, who at the time was homeless and living under the bridge on I-30. Investigators determined that he'd been struck by Flores while in the crosswalk at the intersection of I-30 and Cockrell Hill Road in Dallas. The impact was so severe that Ivory was thrown through the windshield and ended up inside Flores' Kia, coming to a rest in the front passenger seat. Officers subsequently found body parts belonging to the victim at the scene of the collision. Flores didn't notify the emergency services of the incident and instead drove 40 miles to White Settlement with Ivory's lifeless body in the passenger seat. He was believed to have arrived at the restaurant parking lot between 8 and 9 p.m. and presumably passed out until the call for a welfare check was made at around 11:13 p.m. Flores was arrested on suspicion of intoxication, manslaughter, and one of the officers who'd taken him into custody noticed in their reports that it smelled like a brewery in the back seat of his patrol car. The case was ongoing as of the latest updates. Today's topic was requested by Tamika Davis 6641. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Incident in Georgia. Deputies from the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office were in the process of dealing with the crash along Highway 38 in the southern part of Georgia on May the 24th of 2023. As the preliminary investigative reports unfolded, the scene was captured on a deputy's body cam. Officers were standing on one side of the highway's center median next to a vehicle which appeared to have overturned. A tow truck was parked on the other side of the highway and its ramp was lowered, in a scene that the media subsequently compared to one from an action movie or a video game. A Nissan Altima then came barreling down the highway. It glanced off a car traveling in the right lane, then hit the ramp of the low truck, launching itself high into the air. Debris was ejected upon impact and struck a deputy, who was later taken to a local hospital as a precaution, but whose injuries weren't reported to have been serious. The Nissan vaulted over the tow truck, flew for roughly 120 feet, and twisted in the air before landing on its side and roof. As it flipped on impact, it hit another car that was simultaneously traveling along the highway, throwing the latter vehicle roughly 23 feet. Before the footage ended, the deputy whose body cam had captured it started calling for backup as he ran towards the smoking wreck. The Nissan driver, only identified as a 21-year-old woman from Tallahassee, Florida, survived. and was taken to South Georgia Medical Center with serious injuries. It remained unclear what charges the woman would face, but state authorities cited the clip as a primary example of why motorists had to abide by the state's move over law. It stated that motorists should move over one lane when emergency and utility vehicles were stopped on the side of the highway and operating in an official capacity. If you think these drivers are crazy, wait till you get a load of what happened in When Cash Transports Go Wrong, coming right up for you shortly. Number 1. Stephen Michael Gaskell. Leading up to 2023, British man Stephen Michael Gaskell, aged 31, had amassed a lengthy criminal record with dozens of convictions dating back to when he was in his late teens. In 2022, he lost an eye after he was shot with a BB gun during what was said to have been a drug deal gone wrong. In spite of being disqualified from driving, Gaskell got behind the wheel time and time again. In late August of 2023, he was given a suspended prison sentence after he was caught driving a car which he had stolen. Less than a month later, Gaskell, who'd already been caught driving while disqualified 7 previous times, bought a black Mini Cooper from Facebook Marketplace for £400. The purchase was finalized at around 6:30 p.m. on September the 17th. At around 11 p.m., he took his girlfriend, 23-year-old single mother Courtney Donnelly, out for a drive in Brampton Ash, Northamptonshire. In addition to missing an eye and being disqualified from driving, Gaskell was under the influence of cannabis and also had a broken leg at the time. While on the A427, Gaskell lost control of the Mini Cooper while speeding and clipped a near side verge. The car flew off the road and rolled for nearly 200 feet, coming to a stop in a field. Donnelly died after the crash, left her with injuries that were described as catastrophic. Upon being extracted from the wreck, Gaskell reportedly told first responders, "I've killed her, haven't I? The car must have been dodgy. I felt her go a few times." Gaskell survived and was taken to a hospital where he was later arrested, telling officers, "Why do I always get away with it? She's dead, I might as well be dead." Experts would determine that there was nothing wrong with the vehicle, while the prosecution would argue that Gaskell's willingness to drive a car he felt was faulty was indicative of his careless attitude towards driving. It was further revealed in court that he'd never passed the driving test. The prosecution described him as a man addicted to driving while disqualified. Pills and cannabis were found in the car, along with 2 phones, which were examined and from which law enforcement deduced Gaskell was a drug dealer. In January of 2022, he was jailed for 5 years and 2 months after he'd previously admitted causing death by driving while disqualified, possession with intent to supply cannabis, and driving without insurance. Number 8. Micah Salamanca. In July of 2020, a vlogger from the Philippines was taken into custody by authorities in Honolulu, Hawaii, for failing to comply with quarantine regulations. Just 4 days after she'd arrived on the island, 20-year-old Micah Salamanca filmed herself dancing in a store and dining at a restaurant. At the time, a 14-day mandatory quarantine for travelers was in effect as officials struggled to contain the spread of COVID-19. Salamanca, who had millions of followers on YouTube and Instagram, filmed the videos in a Sephora at Ala Moana Center and at a Korean restaurant on Keomoko Street. The footage of her out in public was shared by a tourism authority with Attorney General's special agents, thus leading to the young vlogger's arrest. She posted a $2,000 bail and subsequently apologized for her actions on social media. Salamanca also told her followers that local police had come to her accommodations and told her that she could go out if she provided them with a negative COVID-19 test. Hawaii Attorney General Claire Connors, however, disputed her claims. Number 7. Gaurav Sharma. Indian YouTuber Gaurav Sharma was arrested in May of 2021 and charged with animal cruelty following a stunt in which he tied helium balloons to his dog, resulting in the animal taking flight. The video was filmed in Delhi, and the vlogger, who had over 4 million subscribers, attached the balloons to Dollar, his pet Pomeranian mix. 31-year-old Sharma laughed as his small dog was airlifted to a balcony in a residential area. Another person then grabbed Dollar and pulled him to safety. The footage sparked outrage online, and People for Animals, one of India's largest welfare organizations, raised the alarm with local authorities. Sharma was then arrested under a section of the Animal Cruelty Act, as it was deemed he'd endangered the dog's life in the stunt. The vlogger apologized, but also claimed he'd taken the necessary safety precautions towards ensuring Dollar wouldn't be hurt. Number 6. Cesar El Galavis. A warrant was put out for the arrest of a Texas vlogger in March of 2021 after he'd recorded himself at a SpaceX launch site in Boca Chica in the southern part of the state. SpaceX, a corporation founded in 2002 by business magnate Elon Musk, launched its Starship SN-11 rocket on March the 30th. The rocket exploded above the landing pad during its return trip due to what Musk reported to have been a methane leak. Cesar El Galavis, who ran a YouTube channel called Loco Vlogs, had managed to get remarkably close to the ill-fated spacecraft. Earlier in the month, he began his vlog by excitedly addressing his followers to say, "Guys, I'm telling you, this is going to be epic. This is not what you've seen on other people's channels." It's unclear how Galavis had managed to access the property, but after filming himself in the rocket's shadow, he walked onto the launching pad and got close enough to capture its thrusters. As the video began circulating online, Cameron County Sheriff Eric Garza tweeted that there was a warrant out for Galavis' arrest on charges of criminal trespassing. Galavis subsequently removed the SpaceX video from his channel and uploaded another, in which he apologized for his actions. According to updates on the case, SpaceX had dropped the charges against him. Number 5. Nate Nara. A YouTuber who boasted over 270,000 subscribers on his channel was detained in March of 2020 after attempting to flee a traffic stop conducted by the Cumbie Police Department in Texas. Nate Nara of Sterling Heights, Michigan, was observed by the authorities driving at 91 miles per hour in a zone where traffic was restricted to 75 miles per hour. He then sped up upon being signaled by law enforcement and headed north on Highway 50 towards Commerce. Nara approached the city limits but then turned south and crashed into another vehicle. His car started smoking from a rear tire and throwing fragments of rubber. Nara was forced to bring it to a halt in case he risked causing further damage and was taken into custody. He was charged with reckless driving as well as evading arrest with a motor vehicle, and his bond was set at $17,500. Even though he'd endangered the lives of others on a public street, Nara seemed to have no regrets over his behavior. After he was released, the vlogger posted a photo on his social media taken outside the Hopkins County Jail in which he was showing the middle finger. The post, presumably aimed at the authorities who detained him, received mixed reactions. Number 4. Govert Sweep and Ties Granzier. In June of 2019, Bakersfield resident Matty Roberts created a Facebook event encouraging others to storm Area 51, a post which he would later claim had originated out of a purely comedic intention. Area 51 is the common name attributed to a highly classified facility located within the Nevada Test and Training Range and operated by the United States Air Force. For years, it has been the subject of conspiracy theories regarding contact with extraterrestrial life and experiments with alien technology conducted by the US. The mock event, an often repeated motto of which was, "They can't stop all of us," became an internet meme, and over 2 million users responded that they'd be going to it with the objective of forcing their way into the facility in search for proof of extraterrestrials. In July, a spokesman for the Air Force discouraged the would-be trespassers, claiming that the Armed Forces branch always stands ready to protect America and its assets. Many had recognized the dangers of approaching the base, and organizers canceled the event, reportedly after the FBI had gotten involved. On the day, September the 20th of 2019, only about 150 people showed up at 2 Area 51 entrances, and none of them gained access to the facility. Prior to the main gathering on September the 10th, a pair of Dutch YouTubers were arrested for entering the Nevada National Security Site near Mercury, located more than 20 miles from Area 51. Govert Sweep and Thijs Granzier, both in their early 20s, were inspired by the Facebook event. They were caught by patrols who found a camera and an aerial drone in their rented car. Sweep and Granzier admitted that they'd ignored signs warning them that they were in an area that was off limits to the general public. The pair mentioned that they had no intention of storming the base and merely wanted to see it from the outside. They pleaded guilty to misdemeanor trespassing and illegal parking, for which a judge ordered them to spend 3 days in the Nye County Jail and pay a fine of $2,280 each. They were allowed to return to the Netherlands following their release. Number 3. Sophie Rose. In 2017, on the Thai island of Phuket, a popular British influencer was killed in an accident involving a moped and an 18-wheel truck. Vlogger Sophie Rose, originally from Blackpool, was living in Phuket with her 29-year-old boyfriend, Danny Glass, also a British national, who ran a channel where he uploaded videos on health and wellness. Rose, aged 41, had received millions of views on her own YouTube channel, with some of her content advocating breastfeeding for older children. In many of her videos, Rose could be seen breastfeeding her 5-year-old son from a previous relationship. At the time of the accident, which occurred on May the 8th, Rose was reportedly 6 months pregnant with Glass's child. The couple were on a moped with Rose riding pillion. Glass swerved to avoid a parked car, at which point the moped collided with an 18-wheel truck driven by 30-year-old Thai national Nathawut Kimsu. Rose sustained devastating head injuries and passed away, while Glass emerged from the accident largely unscathed. He and Kimsu were both arrested on charges of reckless driving causing death. Glass pleaded guilty and was given an 18-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years, as well as a fine of nearly $450. Number 2. Jolie King and Mark Firkin. In 2019, a couple of traveling vloggers narrowly avoided serving a lengthy sentence in one of the worst prisons on earth. British-Australian woman Jolie King and her Australian boyfriend, Mark Firkin, had left their Perth home in 2017. They travelled across Asia in a Toyota Land Cruiser through countries that included India, Pakistan, and Nepal, documenting their experience in a YouTube vlog called The Way Overland. Through their videos, the couple reported that they hoped to inspire others to travel, but also dispel some preconceived notions about parts of the world that often got a bad rap in the media. King and Firkin's adventures eventually led them to Iran in the summer of 2019. On June the 30th, they uploaded a video of their first day in the Middle Eastern country. Their friends then raised the alarm when they no longer received any updates from them. It would later emerge that they'd been imprisoned. While trying to gather photos and videos for the travel vlog, the couple had flown a drone near military installations in Jarjrud, Tehran province. They were arrested at gunpoint, blindfolded, and taken to Evin prison on charges that had begun with espionage, but were eventually downgraded to flying a drone without a permit. Evin prison, located in the eponymous neighborhood in the country's capital, is a facility that has been accused of serious human rights abuses, and which one inmate described as a black hole of evil. King and Firkin were ultimately released in early October, following several months of negotiations between officials in Iran and the Australian government. While officially denied, there were reports of a prisoner exchange with 38-year-old Reza Dabashi Kivi, an Iranian former PhD student at the University of Queensland. Kivi was accused of conspiring to export restricted US defense articles to Iran, which could be used to detect stealth planes or missiles. He'd been arrested in Australia in 2018 and awaited extradition to the US, but the state media in Iran reported that he'd returned home. King and Firkin asked the media for privacy in the aftermath of their release, but stated an intention of eventually resuming their travel vlog. Number 1. Logan Paul. In December of 2017, YouTuber Logan Paul, a popular creator with millions of subscribers, and a group of his friends went to Japan, planning, among others, to camp in the Aikogata forest at the base of Mount Fuji. The forest is infamous for being a place where people choose to end their lives. Paul, then in his early 20s, and his companions entered the forest and found the corpse of a man who'd hanged himself. They cancelled their camping plans and alerted the authorities, but then, on December the 31st, Paul uploaded a vlog to his channel depicting the deceased man's body. Paul faced major backlash over the vlog itself and for how he and his group had reacted during the incident. Many internet users felt he was exploiting or making light of a tragic situation. The vlogger's overall behavior in Japan, a country that emphasizes propriety in social interactions, was also considered distasteful. He'd removed his clothes in a crowded street, jumped on a moving forklift at a fish market, and threw a giant pokeball at citizens, including a Tokyo police officer. In the aftermath of the Aikogara vlog, many of the projects that Paul had in development were cancelled, and there was a petition with over 500,000 signatures for him to delete his channel. Paul removed the video from his channel and issued an apology over Twitter, which was largely perceived as disingenuous. He issued further apologies and donated $1 million to prevention agencies that helped people who struggle with thoughts of self-harming. Following a brief hiatus, Paul returned to his daily vlogs on February the 4th of 2018. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have the ability to instantly teleport to your workplace or own your dream car, but commute 4 hours every day? Let us know in the comments section below.